everyone. Thank you so much for joining in this video. This is a podcast series in conversation with real-life biomedical engineers. Our today's guest is Arpita Desai. She is one of the best and kind and helpful senior from my bachelor's college, and I finally got a chance to speak to her on this podcast, and we are going to talk about so many different things like biomaterials, biomedical engineering, and helpfulness of external certificates. So please stay tuned and watch the entire video to get more information about this topic. Hi Arpita, how are you?
Hi Krushi, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. Thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
Great, great. So how was your day? Like, how is your schedule? I mean, these days.
Well, it's quite going on as I would want it, like really busy with all the biomedical activities that we keep doing as biomedical engineers, and full of energy and enthusiasm, trying to spread positivity in this all the exciting 2020 year. But yeah, so far so good.
That's amazing. Coming that exciting 2020 years is kind of a different, but yeah. That's great. That's great. Let's just start. I mean, again, the same question. I know the little backstory of why did you choose the biomedical engineering, but I just wanted to know, like, I want people to know why did you choose biomedical engineering. Can you just tell us about that?
Sure. I'm sure most of the people who chose biomedical engineering would have something to say that, oh, I also wanted to be an engineer and a doctor. So something like in the middle. So it's not that different from this. But I would say that when I was like in my high school, I had, well, we were in high school when there was not the time of internet. So we had actual magazines and student newspapers that we were subscribed to. And one of them had a very nice tradition that every week they would have like a feature article on a particularly new course, which was not so commonly known to people. And one of them was biomedical engineering. And the good thing about this magazine or student newspaper was that they would do a complete deep analysis and research on it. So right from what it includes, what is part of it, what universities are there for it, from bachelor's till master's. So this was when I came across this course, and it felt quite relatable to me because ever since I was a kid, I wanted to do something which brings about some positive impact in lives of people, not just build career for myself. And being doctor was maybe a bit too much for me. I didn't thought I would want to do that. And being engineer was something I wanted to do, but something different. So this, when I came across this article, it felt kind of quite right, that it fits what I always thought I wanted to do. And I can tell you now at this point that I'm glad that I chose, and it was what I wanted. So actually that's how I came across and ended up being a biomedical engineer.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for telling the story. Can I know, like, what are you doing right now? What is your current job and everything?
Sure. So I'm working in a startup called Belaseno, which we are a completely R&D based startup. We are developing absorbable implants. At the moment, our focus is on artificial breast implants. So basically, there are no alternatives in the current market. So the only breast implants that kind of exist are silicone implants, which are having lots of problems. So we are trying to develop the breast implants which are absorbable in body. So they are made 3D printed basically and made out of a polymer which is biocompatible and proved to be compatible to body since like long time. It's like for 10 years and more than that. So it's very safe material. So we are using that material to make this absorbable implants. And that's basically what we are working on. And in parallel, we are trying to see if we can also provide our R&D expertise and inputs for other implants and so on. But yeah, that's the main
That's
focus at the
amazing.
moment.
That's amazing, actually. I have like a very low level of knowledge about biomaterials because it's so complicated and it's so vast field. Yet very few people have tried their hands on this particular field after pursuing biomedical engineering. So while we were in bachelors, I mean, we had pretty much
Mhm.
the similar course structure, and biomaterial was a one of the subjects along with the many other subjects. So how did
Yeah.
you find your interest towards biomaterial, and why did you choose it?
Well, it's always about trial and error, as they say. So I was also, like you said, during the bachelor's, we had the same module more or less. So had interest in biomaterials ever since then, because to me that was something different, and yet it was not that well explored, let's say. So this was very interesting and attractive to me. But I decided to pursue it further when I came to Germany for masters. So here I had opportunity to do a few internships at different research institutes, and one of the internship was in Material Science Institute, and they were focusing. One of the research group was focusing on biomaterials for skin regeneration and tissue regeneration. So that's when I realized that this is something what I thought I would like to do maybe, and that's why I then pursued my master thesis as well for a different method, which was electrospinning method for skin tissue regenerations. And that's when I got more exposed to the detailed research in biomaterials.
Oh, okay. That's great. I also wanted to ask you this, that many students have that mindset that, while you have spent 4 years in pursuing bachelor's in biomedical engineering, then what is the need of again doing your master's in the same field rather than exploring a one particular subject like biomaterials, or maybe a tissue generation, or maybe a full robotics? There's a huge field about that. So, what is the difference between both of them? Because you have studied masters as a specialization in biomedical engineering rather than pursuing specifically biomaterial. So, what difference did
That's
you
true.
find?
I would say that maybe it's up to each individual, so it's hard to generalize in this matter. But bachelor's is more like a foundation and a ground level development of your career. So in my opinion, that's when you get exposed to all the different fields that exist in your course. But then if you are already clear that, okay, this is what I want to pursue and this is what I would like to specialize in, then it's great. For sure, you can go ahead for that. But I was someone who was still wanting to find out that what else can be there, what else can be explored within this field before deciding to specialize in something. So in this kind of situation, I thought it would be much better to still have the more generalized masters, which would give me an opportunity to pursue these internships, which I got to do. So one of the internship, for example, was already on a magnetoencephalograph, so which is equipment similar to EEG machine, but it uses magnetic signals. So this is something I wouldn't have came across if I would have chosen biomaterials right away. But like I said, it's up to individual. So if you know by end of the bachelor's already that this is something you want to do for sure, then that's great. I mean, that's perfect. Then you can go for that. But I was someone who was still unsatisfied with that, and I still wanted to explore more. So that's how I chose my path.
Oh, okay, okay. So, when you pursue your masters in the same field, was there any difference of subjects, or there was having the similar kind of modules but having in-depth knowledge about it? What was it like?
Yes, so there was a bit of both. So there was some subjects which was still like repetition or maybe more generic, like biomedical instrumentation or engineering, which was more still generalized aspect. But of course, there were some new subjects, a bit of new kind of education system as well, because I pursued it in my master's in Germany. So there was also some basic difference in their systems, which was also one of the factor. And there were some of the courses which were also more hands-on, let's say, like depending on your interests. And there was also a different kind of system for practical and so on. So yeah, there were some differences and some similarities both.
Okay, that's great. Continuing with that, I actually did one generic awareness kind of a thing a couple of
Mm-hmm.
days back. So just wanted to know that, what kind of limitations and what kind of level of awareness people have about the biomedical engineering. So I got a good response about it, and got a few similar kind of answer when I asked them about the limitations as a student or as a profession you have in this field. So all of them were like, we are not having hands-on training, we are not having direct exposure to the instruments, we are not having, much knowledgeable faculties in the college or universities. So since you have studied in India, like from the government university, and you have studied in Germany as well, so what difference were that? Because uh, did you had that opportunity to work with instruments, or were your faculty were included in such kind of projects externally apart from the university work, or how was it?
So it again comes back to this point that it depends on individuals. So I would also not completely not agree with what you have heard,
Mhm.
but it also depends down to individual that how you choose to explore and develop yourself. So there is also a factor in India that is that you're seeking hands-on experience or like actual industrial experience, but there is not the same level of cooperation or alignment from the
Right.
industry. So maybe like your university is allowing you to do internship, but there are no companies maybe who would allow. So this is not just one-sided thing. It goes hands in hand. So this is something I would agree. That's also different from what was in Germany, because you asked the difference. So this
Right.
would be one of the factor, because here, for example, the industrial part of the country is also aware and open for this idea that they are willing to let students go to the company and explore different roles within the company and different experiences as a student to understand how the day-to-day life looks like in that area or in that role whilst they are still student,
Right.
because it's easier to change yourself when you are still student if you know that, okay, I thought I like something like this, but this is not something I would like to do. Maybe when,
True.
and you would know only when you do it in a real world and not really just in labs. So this is something I would say lacks not just from education system, but also from the corporate world of the
Right.
country, let's say, how the industrialists would take into account. So this is definitely a factor. But I would say there would still be people in India who would, if you reach out, you would find some that you can go and have experience on. And talking about faculties and knowledge and so on, well, it's hard to say anything about this because, again, the attitude still in the student themselves needs to change, that they are going to government college, for example, not to get more holidays or something, but to actually
True.
maybe go and learn. So it's not just one person's fault ever, I would say. So just blaming someone for something, before that, we should also think how we approached it. So it
That's
goes
true.
hands in hand, I would
That's
say.
true.
Not to blame anyone, but yeah, I would say it goes hands in hand. So, and like I said, if you look out, for example, we had a hard time finding a bachelor's project because we really wanted to do it in a company, so in an industry. So we really had a hard time finding one. But at the end we did, and I can say that it's worth it. So it might take a bit longer, you might have to struggle a bit, but if you can, then it's totally worth it, because then you can have a real hands-on experience with people who are working in
Right.
industry. And that's the only opportunity during the 4 years of bachelor's, let's say. So just go for it. Might take a bit longer, but it's totally worth it.
That's true. That's true. One more thing I actually wanted to add, that I didn't realize it when we were pursuing the bachelor's, but I realized it the later on, that our
Mhm.
professors were more like to be not really spoon feeding side, but they were actually
Yeah.
asking us to do the hands-on experience about the circuits and the all kind of knowledge which we should be gaining during the course
Mhm.
curriculum, rather than the other department or the other college professors do, because they provide
Yeah.
in some college I have heard this, that they do provide some kind of knowledge and some kind of spoon feeding to their students to gain the curriculum results. But rather than that, our
Mhm.
professor more into giving the actual experience of building something which is
Yeah.
really helpful in the later on period for the
Yeah.
patients or maybe hospitals. So even I remember this thing. So what we did is, in our last project, I should not say it out loud, but still I'm saying it just to put this experience of mine for the people who are doing maybe same, or they're thinking in a same manner, but you should not do that. So when I was in last year of biomedical engineering, I, along with my couple of close friends, we were the partners of the final year project, and we
Mhm.
have the final year project to be as a 2 semester joint subject, that half project has
Mhm.
to be
Yeah.
completed in the 7th semester, and the remaining one has to be
Yeah.
finished in
Half
the
in
eighth
the
semester. Yeah. So
Yeah. We
we
had the same.
actually
So yeah.
we approached to the external project body who are actually providing some service in this area, that they build your project,
Yeah.
they
I
give the
know, right?
suggestions. Yeah, they give this a list of suggestion of making some kind of projects, maybe that are related to your field, maybe that are not related to your field, but this is up to you, that you have to select this. So we asked them, okay, we want to do this thing, and they were like, okay, you pay me this 30,000 bucks, and you are good to go. So, but in that case, what was the major loss, that we did not learn anything, because whatever we had to do,
Yeah.
instead of us, they were doing it from
They
starting,
were doing
from
it.
the
Exactly.
programming to basic circuits development or trial and error of the circuits. Everything was depending on
Yeah.
that. We just did the interview with couple of doctors, because we had some of the queries which we needed to clear before
Mm.
putting our project out. So I really suggest everyone who is watching this video that you should not do this. This is extremely pathetic, because if you are doing
And
this, you will not
extremely, yeah,
understand anything.
unethical.
Yeah, not really unethical, because I, along with, there are so many groups who are doing this, and there are so many businesses
Yes,
going
but
out
just
there.
because so many people are doing it doesn't make
Yeah,
it right. Yeah.
that's true. That's
That's the
true.
problem.
Yeah, that's true. So I think instead of giving your project out to somewhere else, rather than that, you should do that by your own self, so you'll
Yeah.
get more experience, more understanding in that particular in-depth knowledge about that particular project which
Mhm.
you are doing. So that would be much better and helpful to make many more projects coming out there in your industrial experience. So what was your project, by the way?
So our project was actually, so like I said, we went to a ventilator company,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a project with them. So it was external project, and we developed a prototype ventilator, which was like a combination of so at the generally in market are neonatal ventilators, and in neonatal ventilators there are two categories normally: neonatal ventilator, and there is a specific type called bubble CPAP. So
Yeah.
we developed a prototype which was combination of both two, because the risk most of the time in the hospital was that during switching of the patient, of the baby basically, from one to other, there were lots of risks involved. So it was like much better to have a single device which can have both functionalities.
Right.
So we developed a prototype. It was a working prototype at the end. We didn't expect it we would make it, but yeah, it was working prototype at the end. And so that was basically our master's project, bachelor's project.
That's
Sorry.
amazing. And I think, as far as I know, ventilator is the most complicated device in the medical industry. Along with, there are too many devices which are complicated, but the
Too many,
ventilator,
exactly. It's
yeah.
hard to track.
But ventilator is
Yeah.
one of them. I think it's great that you worked on it.
It was a
Yeah.
bit of struggle in the beginning to find a company that would take a random bachelor
Yeah.
student for project, but it was worth it, I would
So,
say.
who was the external partner for your project, if you can say that?
There is a ventilator company in Ahmedabad, RHP Medical.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that they were the one who are
That's
with whom we
great.
were working.
That's great.
Yeah. And the owner of the company, so our external supervisor, he's
Yeah.
also biomedical engineer, and he's also very good, very knowledgeable person. And he's great, because when we went there to meet, he was the first person that he was like, oh yeah, sure, I would like to spread the knowledge and develop something innovative. So we were like, okay, that's it, we are going for this. So it's hard to find that kind
Yeah,
of people.
that's true.
So no, it was great, and it
Yeah.
was totally
I
worth
know
it.
because
Yeah.
as a student, if someone is coming to your place for the internship or maybe some kind of external
Yeah.
projects, if a student has to submit at the college, there are very few organizations or corporate people who actually support you in a really good manner, because they feel sometimes that it's just a waste of time for them. But if you see it on the other hand, you can, I mean, the one who is teaching you, who is mentoring you, they can also learn a
Yeah.
lot of things about that particular thing, because every student has a different kind of idea about their projects, and there are so many different things they need to explore. So I think it's a win-win situation on the both sides. So I think corporate people should give a chance to all the students who
Yeah.
are seeking this kind of guidance. Great. So I was actually asking you, coming back to the question which I needed to ask you, that
Yes, please.
how is your experience about biomaterials? Because as far as I know, people have very less knowledge, if I can say that, about biomaterials. If someone is asking you that what is biomaterial, then the generic answer or generic applications you will say is about the dental biomaterials which we
Mm,
implant and which people do easily recognize when they think of biomaterials.
yes.
So apart from that generic usage, what is the different kind of usage you have identified during your internship or during your work organization currently?
Mhm. Yes, you're absolutely right. Like the first thing that comes to mind are dental implants, then maybe hip implants and so on. They
Yeah,
are the next ones, then the knee replacements, the most common surgeries. So this is indeed true. But I think there are a lot more implants,
yeah,
and in general, biomaterials application are not just limited to implants. For example, right from skin grafting to skin regeneration, it's all covered within biomaterials, because at the end, so any material that could be used as a medical device or medical implant or medical application would be considered biomaterials. So for example, even the probe that would go in for endoscopy,
yeah,
that goes inside the body. So it has interaction within your internal systems of the body. So
right,
technically, that material will also have to be compatible for not creating any infections. So it is also part of biomaterials.
Yeah,
Not to
that's
say that
true.
it's biomaterial, it's in device, but the device making companies have to make sure that that part of the endoscope
Hmm.
is biocompatible, let's say, for
Right,
example, the
right.
material that is used. So I think people are using biomaterials in a lot more way unconsciously than one might realize, for
Right.
example. And it has actually a lot more application in aesthetic industry as well as medical industry. So this is also another factor. So whenever you have like plastic surgery or rhinoplasties and this kind of surgeries, it's all about biomaterials, like what particular material was used. So it's not always just about implant, but like you said, the first thought that comes to mind are implants and the most common used implants, but it has much wider application in industry than one might think. And like I said, it can be unconscious a lot of time that
Yep.
you might not realize that you're going in that area, but you actually are. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was a great answer actually, and much informative as well. Um, One more thing is like I know that if as a biomedical engineer or as an instrument designer, if someone is not looking at the aspect of biomaterial, what kind of problems one can have afterwards. But just to put it out there, like if in case someone is not considering biomaterials, what kind of problems a patient can have?
Well, it's hard to give a one answer to this because it's all how the patient's body will react. For
Right.
example, a particular biomaterial or a particular, let's take example of hip implant, for example. It can be, the metal implant might react very good with one patient's body, but might react very badly with another patient's body. They have maybe inflammation, that the implant is not well taken into body. Then they have like also problems maybe of having the debris around it, and the
Right.
bones are affected, ligaments. So whereas someone has a more accepting in that area. So that is why having biocompatibility tests for any biomaterial related applications is so important,
Hmm.
because this at least gives you a generic overview that how compatible it can be on an average. Then of course it's dependent from patient to patient, but at least doing this basic biocompatibility tests or doing maybe animal studies even or clinical studies can give you much deeper insights into this kind of factors, that what you must take into account and what not. So because it's always like about risk to patient, that how risky it can be,
Yeah.
and for that you can never be sure enough. Let's say you can do always more tests, so you
That's
just have
true.
to define at what point you have enough tests to assure your patient that you can be safe. Most probably one can never say 100%, but we should always strive for as much safety as possible for patients.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think there's no wonder that why doing such kind of R&D takes so much of longer period of time. Maybe it's 5 years, 10 years. You don't know about it because unless and until someone is sure about that particular material, you cannot put it out there for the
You
people.
cannot, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I think having in-depth knowledge about this biomaterials initially, and
yeah.
you understand by the time you do testing on different kind of animals or maybe humans. So after that, only one can realize that this kind of material can put some kind of exposure out there in patients. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
I mean, it can be even, you might not even have thought, because, for example, there are both kinds of biomaterials, right? Natural and synthetic. And for example, if you're using plastic or other synthetic, then one have to also take into account the catalysts that have been used for polymerization. You don't know
Yeah.
how much of effect it has on, normally not that much, just speaking from the experience, but still it's not something you can ignore, that you might have to consider that. So it can be down to any level of that, because um, we don't know that if we put something new in our body can cause the reaction. So that's something that we have to be extremely sure of,
Right.
that there is no extreme effect or reaction inside the body once used, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. I have this question in mind. Like, I know that you are working at a research organization, and just I am curious to know that, what kind of data you collect to even make some kind of research in plant. Like, you must be having. So since you are doing this breast implant thing, the breast research for the new material,
Mhm.
so what kind of data do you guys study? Like, because I'm not sure that whether it is related to some kind of human interaction in it, or you have studied some kind of previous materials of breast, or how is it like?
So, no, I mean, like I said, we are using a polymer which is widely accepted in the biomedical and in the medical industry for a long,
Mm-hmm.
long time, like more than 10 years
Yeah,
now. So it's similar material to sutures. So,
yeah,
sutures have been well accepted by body generally. Some people still do have allergic reactions and so on, but it's not as risky, let's say.
yeah,
So we are not using new material. That's one of the reasons, because like you said, the research can take years and years. So if we use a new material, this can end up doing research just for material, like years, and then for product. So we are trying to use the material that has already been accepted in the medical industry. So
that's
we are
interesting.
not doing more investigation for material itself.
That's true. That's true. And that's interesting as well. I just want to put this thing like, I heard about the designing a new instrument. Like, if you can take an example of pacemaker, which can replace the SA node
Mhm,
working, um,
mhm,
which is just to
yeah,
trigger your heart to make it pump.
mhm,
So while
yeah.
someone is designing a pacemaker, what kind of things are included? Like, right from this biomaterial to biomechanics to the designing aspect of instrument, because that plays a extreme
Of course.
high role. Because if
Yes,
your device is not having a right uh, type of design, you might get failed afterwards.
of course.
So
I mean, design is so critical. That's one of the reasons that it's such an critical, important step,
yeah,
which is there in the whole medical product or device development phase, let's say.
yeah,
I totally agree. And I mean, there are a lot more aspects included in design than just creativity. Of course, creativity is major part of
yeah,
designing, but there are a lot more aspects, like you said, considering the material you use, also standards that are involved and the regulations, and how you would verify your product, how you would validate it, because you have to still test and your design has to work. So you can be as creative as you want, but if it doesn't work, then it's not like it cannot be realized, then it's
yeah.
useless. So as a designer, like you said, there are a lot more layers to it than it just looks like. So yeah, totally, I totally agree that it's also one of the less pursued field in this area.
Yeah, 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 yeah. What kind of advancements you have seen so far, and what kind of advancement do you expect to come in next maybe 5 years or 10 years?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because we can keep discussing for this for
Yeah.
hours, but I'll try to keep it short as possible, let's say. I think in case of advancements in biomedical engineering in general, I would say the first thing is that people are getting more and more aware about this, which is a very good thing. And this basically means that there are more and more industries considering this as an extension. So, right from 3D printing to artificial intelligence to information and technology as well. I
Yeah.
mean IT, because you see the growth in telemedicine. You see that artificial intelligence is considered for having patient data collected and learning and machine learning and deep learning. Like you can see all the different kinds of fields using their application in healthcare and medical, which is great because I think it's needed with all this growing world and all the different kinds of diseases and all the different healthcare issues. Not pointing out anything with this year, but in general, we have a lot more advancement that needs to happen. So I think this is a great thing to see, and we can as see that it has much broader impact. For example, 10 years ago from now, you would have never thought that a doctor from a completely different corner of the world would be able to advise you on something, or maybe even do a surgery with all the robotic surgery and so on we see. So I think that it's great. And again, pointing out back to the biomaterials, like we have more and more materials being synthesized, more and more implants for replacing the handicapped people maybe, or having like the one that has impaired due to maybe some other accidents and so on.
Yeah.
So it's getting much and much advanced in every sub branch of biomedical engineering. So I can see that the healthcare system would advance a lot more in the coming years, with all the other fields also putting their efforts into having applications in there. So yeah, I think that we have more than just biomedical engineers working for healthcare now. So that's always a good thing. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You just said it so well. You just put it out there so simply. That's amazing. So,
I'm glad that, yeah.
last question,
So,
that
mhm.
if you have to put that, the current version of you and the previous version of you, like before, when you were pursuing your bachelor's, what kind of advice you would have
Mhm.
given or you want to give to your previous version from now?
Wow. Quite a unique question, I must say, but let me try to put it in some way. I would say that first thing is, first and the foremost thing, in my opinion, as a biomedical engineer, I would tell to my old self, my past self, would be that be responsible and ethical, because
Yeah.
you are like, we are not just any engineer. We are engineer who, I mean, normally engineers and doctors are people who affect people's life a lot. But as a biomedical engineer, we have a lot more impact on people's day-to-day life and healthcare than like you would assume, or you would
Yeah.
even think about, or you would imagine. And this is more socially speaking and professionally as well. We have to be really responsible, because we are kind of a link or a bridge between doctors, who are, again, like I said, are the most important people for healthcare of the population, as well as engineers. So a bridge has to be smooth, efficient, and effective, and responsible. So it's something that one should not realize that it exists. It should be as smooth. That's why it can happen sometime that as a biomedical engineer, we might feel that we are being unnoticed, or we are not, in the spotlight. But that doesn't mean that we are not important. We have to be responsible always. That's I think, my feeling so far, that we always have to be responsible. So this is one of the important thing I would say to my old self, that no matter what.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Anyway, let's
Yeah.
just wrap this podcast. Thank you so much, Arpita, for coming on this show. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to
Thank
interview
you
you
very
and
much.
speak about our field. And I wish you all the best for the coming advancement and the research you are doing with the breast implantation. So good luck with that.
Thank you very much, Krushi, for having me. It was great talking to you. And yeah, my best regards to you as well.
Thank you. Great, great.